My brothers and sisters, hear me this morning. There comes a moment in life when your strength is no longer enough. Your strategies fall short and your hands feel too weak to hold the weight of the war you're facing. But that is not the moment to collapse. That is the moment to call on the God who never loses a battle. When life pushes you to the edge, when the enemy circles your mind, when circumstances rise up like giants, lift your voice and declare, Lord, step into my battle and fight for me, because there is power when you stop trying to fight spiritual battles with human weapons. There is breakthrough when you understand that the war you're in is bigger than what you see, but so is the God who defends you. This morning is not about fear, not about defeat, not about retreat. This morning is about declaring that the Lord of heaven's armies is taking his rightful place on the battlefield of your life. You may feel outnumbered, but you are not abandoned. You may feel overwhelmed, but you are not overpowered. The enemy may have launched an attack, but he did not expect you to call on divine reinforcement. When you pray, you invite the supernatural into the natural, the eternal into the temporary, the undefeated one into the very center of your struggle. So pray boldly, Lord, step into my battle, step into my finances, step into my mind, step into my home, step into my health, step into the places where I've been worn down. Fight the enemies I cannot see, silence the voices I cannot control, and break the chains I cannot loosen on my own. When the Lord fights for you, weapons formed against you lose their aim. When the Lord fights for you, storms lose their authority. When the Lord fights for you, what looked like a setback becomes a stage for your comeback. No force of darkness can stand when God rises to defend his child. Hear this today. Your battle is not a sign of God's absence. It is the platform for his intervention. Your weakness is not the end of your journey. It is the beginning of his strength. Your tears are not evidence of defeat. They are the seeds of your next victory. So lift your head, straighten your shoulders, speak with the confidence of someone who knows heaven is backing them. The enemy does not get the final say. Fear does not get the final word. Discouragement does not write your story. God is stepping in. God is surrounding you. God is fighting for you. One, when your strength ends, God's power begins. The moment you feel like you can T-push any further is the exact moment God steps in with supernatural strength. Your limitation is not failure. It's the doorway for his intervention. Two, you're not fighting alone. Heaven fights with you. Every time you pray, you activate divine reinforcements. Angels move, doors shift, battles turn. You are backed by the armies of heaven. Three, your battle is a setup for God's glory. What looks like a crisis is often God positioning you for a breakthrough that will testify of his power. Don't fear the pressure, expect his glory. Four, the enemy attacks strongest where your purpose is greatest. If the fight feels intense, it's because your destiny is valuable. The opposition is proof of the impact you're about to make. Five, faith speaks victory even when the battlefield looks defeated. Your words carry spiritual authority. Speak life, speak strength, speak victory. Your declaration invites God into the fight. Six, God knows the hidden battles you don't have words for. Even the struggles you can't articulate are seen, understood, and covered by him. Your silent tears are heard in heaven. Seven, when God fights for you, no weapon can stay standing. Weapons may form, storms may rise, enemies may threaten, but none can succeed when God himself stands on your battlefield. Eight, your weak moments are not setbacks, they are training grounds. Every challenge is building endurance, sharpening your spirit, and preparing you for bigger blessings and greater victories. Nine, victory is not coming. Victory is already written. You're not fighting for victory, you're fighting from victory. God has already secured the outcome. Your job is to walk in faith until you see it manifest. When your strength ends, God's power begins, and that truth alone can transform the way you face every battle in your life. Because there comes a moment so heavy, so overwhelming, so exhausting, when your hands are trembling, your mind is tired, and your heart feels like it's holding on by a thread. And it's in that exact moment the enemy whispers, "You're finished." But hear this with clarity. Your limit is not your breaking point. It's God's entry point. Your exhaustion is not evidence of defeat. It is a sign that heaven is getting ready to step in. There's a reason you feel stretched. There's a reason the pressure seems relentless. There's a reason you're facing battles that seem too big for your abilities. It's because you were never meant to win this war in your own strength. You were never meant to handle spiritual battles with human resources. You were never meant to carry the weight alone. Some battles are designed to show you what you cannot do, so God can reveal what he can do. Have you ever noticed how, when things become unbearable, when the fight gets intense, when you've tried everything you know and still nothing changes, that's when your spirit starts reaching upward. That's when you stop relying on your own wisdom, your own ideas, your own strategies. That's when humility replaces pride and surrender replaces control. And suddenly you find yourself saying words you haven't said in a long time. Lord, I can't do this without you. That confession isn't weakness. It's power. Because the moment you stop pretending to be invincible, you unlock the strength of the invincible one. The moment you stop forcing solutions, you open the door to divine intervention. Your limit becomes God's launching pad. Imagine a runner at the end of a race. Legs shaking, lungs burning, vision blurred. He wants to stop. Everything in him says, I can't. But it's in that moment that the coach steps onto the track, looks him in the eyes and says, you're closer than you think. You don't need your strength. You need your focus. That's exactly what God does for you. He doesn't step in when you're strong. He steps in when you're empty. Because emptiness is the space where his power fits perfectly. When you feel like you've done all you can, when the prayers feel repeated, the tears feel familiar, and the burden seems unchanged, God leans in and says, now watch what I can do. You see, he doesn't just want to help you. He wants to show himself through you. He wants the testimony to be so clear, so undeniable, so powerful that when people ask, how did you survive that? The only answer you can give is, it wasn't me. God stepped in. Sometimes God allows you to reach the end of yourself, because if he stepped in too early, you think the victory came from your ability, your intelligence, your strength, your discipline. But when he waits until you're drained, depleted, and out of options, there's no confusion about where the breakthrough came from. The glory can only go one direction, back to him. There are moments when God lets the battle intensify because he is walking you out of self-reliance and into supernatural dependence. You weren't created to be self-sufficient. You were created to be God-dependent. That's why you feel frustrated when you try to solve everything on your own. That's why you feel overwhelmed when you try to carry everything in your own power. You were never designed to fight without him. Hear this. Your strength ending is not failure. It is transition. It's the shift from striving to surrender, from human effort to divine empowerment, from fighting alone to fighting with a God who has never lost. Think about a child trying to carry something too heavy. They pull, they push, they struggle, but the weight doesn't move. Finally, tired and frustrated, they look up at their father and say, I can't. And the father steps forward, lifts what the child never could, and carries it effortlessly. That is exactly what God does when you finally acknowledge your limitations. The moment you say, I can. Heaven responds with, I can. Let this sink in deeply. God never expected you to be strong enough. He only expected you to be surrendered enough. He never asked you to handle battles alone. He asked you to trust him enough to step aside and allow his power to take the lead. There is a shift that happens in your spirit when you stop trying to operate in your own strength. Fear loses its grip, Anxiety loosens its hold. Confusion begins to lift because now you're no longer fighting from a place of panic. You're fighting from a place of peace. You're not fighting as someone trying to survive. You're fighting as someone who knows God is stepping into the battlefield. Your strength may end, but God's strength doesn't. Your ability may run out, but his power never does. Your wisdom may fail, but his plans remain perfect. Your endurance may weaken, but his presence is everlasting. When you reach the point where you whisper, Lord, I can't do this, heaven responds, that's exactly where I take over. You are not fighting alone. Heaven fights with you. And the moment you truly grasp this, the entire atmosphere of your battle shifts because there is something powerful, something unshakable, something life-changing about knowing that you are not standing on the battlefield by yourself. The enemy wants you to believe you're outnumbered, surrounded, and unsupported. He wants you to feel isolated, overwhelmed, and forgotten. But hear this with a boldness that shakes your spirit awake. Every time you pray, you activate an army that the enemy cannot see, cannot stop, and cannot defeat. There are battles you're fighting that look impossible only because you haven't yet seen who's fighting beside you. There are enemies that appear larger than life because you're looking at them through human eyes instead of spiritual eyes. If you could see what heaven mobilizes on your behalf when you whisper a prayer, your fear would collapse instantly. If you could see what rises up when you say, Lord, I need you, your worry would vanish because heaven never leaves you uncovered. Heaven never leaves you unguarded. Heaven never leaves you exposed. There are angels assigned to you, angels that go before you, angels that watch behind you, angels that stand on every side of you. And when you pray, they move. When you worship, they respond. When you declare God's promises, they activate. You are surrounded by a presence stronger than pressure, a force greater than fear, and a power far beyond anything the enemy could ever form. Think about the battles you've survived that should have taken you out. Think about the nights you cried so hard you could barely breathe, yet somehow morning found you standing. Think about the attacks that came out of nowhere. Mental attacks, emotional attacks, spiritual attacks. And yet you're still here. That wasn't because you were strong enough. That wasn't because you were smart enough. That wasn't because you were lucky. Heaven stepped in. Heaven covered you. Heaven fought for you. There are moments in life when the battle feels suffocating, when it feels like the walls are closing in, the pressure is rising, and the enemy is whispering his lies into your mind. But right there, in the middle of that pressure, heaven leans in. Heaven surrounds you. Heaven stands up on your behalf. You may not see it, but the spiritual world is more active than the physical one. You may not feel it, but that doesn't mean you're abandoned. God has placed warriors around you that do not sleep, do not break, do not fear, and do not lose. Sometimes the battle gets heavier right before heaven moves. Sometimes the attack intensifies because the enemy knows help is on the way. Sometimes things look worse before they get better because what is happening in the unseen realm is far greater than what you can see. The enemy wants to distract you with what's visible so you forget what's invisible. But the invisible is where your greatest protection lies. There are blessings coming towards you that the enemy tried to block, but heaven pushed through. There are dangers that were headed towards you that you never even knew existed because heaven intercepted them. There are traps that were set for you that you never fell into because heaven rerouted you without you even realizing it. You are walking through life with divine protection around you that is operating even when you're unaware. When you pray, something shifts in the atmosphere. Heaven doesn't wait. Heaven doesn't debate. Heaven responds. Your prayer is not just words. It is a declaration that draws the armies of God into your circumstance. You are not whispering into emptiness. You are launching a spiritual command that heaven takes seriously. Your voice shakes things. Your cry summons reinforcement. Your faith moves the unseen. And even when you feel nothing, heaven is still active. Even when you hear nothing, heaven is still speaking. Even when you see nothing, heaven is still fighting. Your battle may feel lonely, but it is never fought alone. The enemy tries to isolate you because isolation makes your problem look bigger and your God look smaller. But the truth is, you are shielded on all sides. You are covered by a presence the enemy cannot penetrate. You are surrounded by a force he cannot overcome. Think about a soldier on the front lines who suddenly realizes an entire army is behind him. The fear disappears. The hesitation fades. The confidence rises because strength doesn't come from the size of the enemy. It comes from the size of the support behind you. And the one supporting you is the commander of heaven's armies. When you walk into a battle with heaven beside you, you walk differently. You speak differently. You think differently. You stop trembling. You stop doubting. You stop panicking because now you understand that the fight is not yours to win. It is yours to stand through while heaven secures the victory. There is no attack too strong for heaven to counter. There is no darkness too deep for heaven to break. There is no enemy too powerful for heaven to silence. And there is no battle in your life that heaven is not willing to fight. You don't face anything alone. You don't carry anything alone. You don't fight anything alone. Heaven is with you, around you, and ahead of you, moving in ways you cannot see, but will absolutely feel in the victory that follows. Your battle is a setup for God's glory. And when that truth sinks into your spirit, the weight of what you're facing begins to shift. Because what looks like chaos to you is often divine strategy in motion. What feels like destruction is sometimes construction. What seems like a setback is usually the stage being built for a comeback that will bring God more glory than you've ever imagined. The very thing you're asking God to remove might be the very thing he's planning to use. And the fight you wish would disappear might be the fight that becomes the testimony someone else needs to see. There are moments in life when you look around and think, why is this happening to me? Why now? Why like this? You feel the pressure, the confusion, the uncertainty, and the weight of a battle you didn't choose. And in those moments, the enemy whispers, this will break you. But your spirit needs to rise up and understand something far deeper. God never wastes a battle, not one. Every struggle has purpose. Every tear plants a seed. Every storm reveals something heaven is preparing. Sometimes God allows the storm because what he wants to show you in the storm is more powerful than what he could show you in the calm. Sometimes the fire reveals his presence in ways comfort never could. Sometimes the valley reveals his guidance in ways the mountaintop never would. And sometimes the battle reveals his strength in ways peace never could. The place where you're hurting is often the place where God is planning to show his greatest glory. Think about the times in your life when things were easy. You didn't pray as hard. You didn't lean on him as deeply. You didn't expect the miraculous because you didn't need it. But it's when your back is against the wall, when the odds are against you, when the situation is beyond your power, that's when you start looking for God in ways you never looked before. That's when your faith sharpens. That's when your spirit awakens. That's when your heart begins to declare, Lord, if you don't step in, it won't happen. And right there, right in that place of surrender, God begins to shape a testimony, not a small one, not a casual one, not a predictable one. A testimony so real, so undeniable, so powerful that even people who doubted you will have to admit only God could have done that. Your battle is the ground where God showcases his abilities. Think of a painter who needs a blank canvas. Think of a sculptor who needs a block of stone. God uses struggle as the canvas for his glory, problems as the material for his miracles, and pain as the soil for his promise. The pressure you feel is not the sign of God leaving. It is the sign of him crafting, forming, positioning, preparing you to carry something greater than you carried before. Sometimes you're not stuck. You're being staged. Sometimes you're not being punished. You're being positioned. Sometimes the delay is not denial. It's divine timing aligning everything so that when the breakthrough comes, it leaves no room for confusion about who made it happen. You might feel surrounded by problems, but God is surrounding the situation. You might feel outnumbered, but God is outmaneuvering the enemy. You might feel like you're losing ground, but God is laying groundwork. He is arranging the pieces in ways you can't see yet. He is orchestrating outcomes that don't make sense right now, but will make perfect sense later. There are blessings with your name on them that require this battle. There are levels of faith you would never reach without this struggle. There are parts of your destiny that require the very pain you're praying away. God is not trying to destroy you. He's trying to reveal something through you, something heavier, something stronger, something deeper, something that will glorify him in a way your comfort never could. You may not see it now, but you will. One day you'll look back at what you're facing right now and say, if that battle never happened, I wouldn't be who I am today. If that storm never hit, I wouldn't have discovered the strength that was in me. If that valley never came, I wouldn't have seen God like that. The beauty of God's glory is that it shines brightest in impossible places. It shines in sickness, in loss, in confusion, in denial, in heartbreak, in the darkest moments where you thought hope was gone. That's where his power becomes undeniable. That's where his presence becomes unshakable. That's where his hand becomes visible. And right now, in the very battle you're questioning, God is preparing a moment where his glory will be revealed so clearly, so powerfully, so unmistakably that even the enemy will regret ever messing with you. Your battle is not the end. It is the beginning of something heaven has been preparing for you long before the fight even started. The enemy attacks strongest where your purpose is greatest. And once you understand that, the entire perspective of your struggle changes. Because the intensity of your battle is not random. It is not accidental. It is not a coincidence. The enemy is not attacking you because you are weak. He is attacking you because you are dangerous. Dangerous to his plans, dangerous to his agenda, dangerous to the darkness he's trying to spread. There is something inside you, something God placed there that threatens hell. A purpose, a calling, a destiny, an assignment. And the closer you get to stepping into it, the louder the enemy becomes. The attacks increase not because you are failing, but because you are getting too close to becoming who God created you to be. It's like a warning signal and hell goes off every time you grow, every time you pray, every time you rise, every time you refuse to quit. Heaven sees your purpose, but so does hell. That's why certain seasons feel heavier than others. That's why certain battles feel personal. That's why certain attacks feel specifically designed to break you. Because they are. The enemy studies your potential. He studies your strength. He studies you, our influence. He studies the anointing on your life. And he launches attacks meant to distract you from the very thing God is calling you into. Think about it. If you were going nowhere, he wouldn't waste energy on you. If you had no calling, he wouldn't bother. If your presence carried no spiritual weight, he'd leave you alone. But the fact that you're under pressure is proof that your life carries impact. The fact that you're under fire is proof that you're carrying something valuable. The fact that the storm is fierce is proof that your future is powerful. The enemy doesn't attack empty vessels. He attacks chosen ones. And the truth is, the attacks often reveal what the enemy sees in you before you see it in yourself. You might feel unsure, but hell is certain about your potential. You might feel small, but hell is intimidated by your purpose. You might feel unqualified, but hell is terrified of what will happen if you ever fully believe what God has spoken about you. The attack is a confirmation of your assignment. Sometimes the battle is not about who you are right now, but about who you are becoming. The enemy isn't fighting you because of your present. He's fighting you because of your future. He's afraid of the version of you that will rise after this battle. He's afraid of the strength